evening, everyone. Welcome to the Fredonia Central School Board of Education meeting for March 12, 2019. We always begin with a pledge to the flag, so if folks would be so kind as to stand and salute the flag, and I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks, everyone. Then we have our proposed agenda for board members. I would just want to note a couple of things. One is that 8A, Roman numeral 8A, we have the middle school philosophy and scheduling committee presentation. I would just ask that after we approve the agenda that we have that presentation. And then that would give us an opportunity. We also have it here from the public after that. And I really think that the presentation will be valuable. So if folks have any comments regarding that, that opportunity is then available to them. Then we would be looking to have adoption of the agenda, including a consent agenda for line items under Roman numeral 6, personnel, and Roman numeral 7, new business. And adoption of the consent agenda upon a motion and a second and an affirmative vote by members present approves each and every item so designated. However, prior to the adoption of the consent agenda, any board member may remove any item from the consent agenda. This item will then come up for discussion as part of the regular agenda. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite routine matters so that the board has more time to deal with substantive matters. So with respect to that, we would be looking to approve the proposed agenda, including the consent agenda. And so would anyone wish to have anything removed from either Roman numeral 7, new business, or Roman numeral 6, personnel? I would just want to note on Roman numeral 7, D1, there is a Fredonia Middle School resolution for the Quest program. I am named as a volunteer. I'm going to be abstaining from that particular one, and so long as everyone's okay with just noting that I'd be abstaining on that one, I just roll that into the consent agenda, not pull it out especially. Is everyone okay with that? That'd be great. Okay, then need a motion to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda with those elements. And Ms. Gagenschatz, and then is there a second to that?
Second.
Second by Mr. Hawk. Okay, any issues whatsoever? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Then we have the agenda, we've approved personnel and new business, and that gets us right away then to the middle school philosophy and scheduling committee presentation. Ms. Troutman, if you want to start us off. Sure. I know we've got an all-star cast and a presentation.
Yeah.
All of us?
A few of us.
Where do you want us all over here?
Oh, we could just kind of spread out.
Here in the center.
So,
I did notice that.
I don't know how that happened.
This is very middle school like.
first of all, I would really like to thank everyone for allowing us to present. This work actually started back in October. And so we have put a lot of time, a lot of thought, a lot of conversations, a lot of rethinking into this whole presentation and the work. I have to say, first off that, I've been in education for 20 plus years. And the group that you're going to hear from tonight, and we have two other ones that couldn't be here tonight, I have not worked with anyone better than what you see right here. So I can't say enough about them. We did have, I have the clicker, sorry. I'm in charge of the clicker and I forgot it already. We had two committees that have been working independently at first. We had a philosophy committee, and you can see who's up there, I won't read the names. And then we had a scheduling committee. And those two committees worked independently, and probably a month and a half ago, the two committees joined because the work that we're going to present tonight, it just kind of makes sense that we come together as one. So through all the months that we have been working, we have talked a lot about best practices, educational research, and we've looked at many different strategies that we feel are best practices. And so we took a look at the work from John Caddy, and he is an educational researcher. He's well known over the United States, actually around the world. And he has, through his work, identified 252 factors that influence student learning. And he actually has a list, and he tells you for each strategy how they impact student learning. And so up here, I gave you 0.70 effect size and higher, the potential to considerably accelerate student achievement. So it's not just kids are learning, you're really going to accelerate if you use strategies that he's identified. Effect size 0.40 to 69, there's a potential to accelerate, but it's not as big as the higher number one that I just mentioned. 0.2 to 0.30, the effect size has a positive impact on student achievement, and 0.01 to 0.19 has a small impact. So throughout the presentation, you are going to see those effect sizes so that you can kind of see that everything that we have looked at and considered, we try to make sure that we're accelerating student achievement or we're highly accelerating student achievement. So the middle school philosophy group looked at a variety of research. You know, we read research, we discussed it, we tried to prioritize what we thought would give us the most bang for our buck. And so the things that this team is going to be talking about are things as teaming, interdisciplinary units, flexible grouping, service learning, alternate assessments, and character development. So those were the main things that we identified that we thought would really impact our students right away.
Okay, first up, research supports that teaming in the middle school as best practice. The team is the foundation for a strong learning community. Within the teams, we hope with our new schedule that it's going to increase student achievement, increase parent contact, and allow us to establish these deeper, more meaningful relationships, student to student, teacher to student, and teacher to teacher. Teachers working together and supporting one another is a huge factor that impacts student achievement, and having this time to plan and collaborate together will allow us to identify where our students' our weaknesses are and how can we as a team work together to support and meet those needs of the individual student.
Okay, so as Emily was mentioning, really the goal of teaming, the nice thing about teaming is that we will have common planning time where we hope to really spend a lot of time creating these units that are cross-content. We're also looking to really spend some time thinking about flexible grouping, so how should we group our students so they can be most successful in their learning environment. Looking to make these units would allow us to create real-life situations for our students and hopefully develop their critical thinking skills in the process.
Service learning connects the classroom content to authentic experiences within the community. And we know that our students who participate in service learning opportunities show academic gains, but they also show gains in their social skills as well as their mental and emotional well-being. Students who participate in service learning report the fact that they feel valued, They report that they feel responsible for their community and they have pride in their community. And interestingly, they also report increased feelings of attachment for their school. So as we look towards our middle schoolers going to high school, having participated in service learning, they'll be better prepared with cooperative grouping skills. They'll be better prepared to be participating on teams. They'll be better prepared to set goals for themselves and adapt their goals to changing circumstances. They will also have a healthier emotional outlook, a greater sense of belonging. So in every sense, they'll essentially be better prepared to learn, right? This will ease their transition to high school and increase the likelihood that they remain engaged, compassionate community members long into adulthood, which is what we would all hope for them.
Alternative assessments kind of ties different aspects of this together. We're talking about interdisciplinary units, we're looking at community service and service learning, and we would like to use teaming and common planning time to develop some different ways to assess our students. Alternative assessments allow students to set goals and to challenge themselves. It allows them to make a deeper connection to the content and to the material that they're learning, as well as to challenge each student to be successful in the assessment that they're having. So we would be able to challenge an advanced student in the classroom to make a connection, to dig deeper into the content or unit that we've studied, to come up with their own project that they want to use to demonstrate their knowledge, as well as to give a struggling student a little more opportunity for success. How can they experience success and demonstrate their growth and learning in the units that we've talked about?
So with our new schedule, we're also looking to devote some time, more time, to building character development. It's no surprise that our population is changing, so with those changes, we need to make some more time to address the social and emotional components that our students deal with on a daily basis. And that does take school time. This time is well spent. Its research has supported that it increases greater attendance, reduces violence, less vandalism, and overall builds a greater sense of belonging. This year we did start our Pride Initiative, which has been great, and students have really kind of clung to it and they're interested, they're motivated by it, but time always seems to fall short. We really need to teach these principles, not necessarily teach them what to think, but how to think. And so that when it comes time to making tough decisions, they have the tools, they have the education to do that. So looking to do more of that in the classroom as well, in the middle school.
Want to kind of emphasize the fact that the motivation for all of this is for our students and for the needs and the expectations that we have for our students. So the question is why? Why change what we're currently doing? First of all, we want to offer some opportunities for advancement, opportunities for students that are high achievers to, in the middle school, experience those high-level classes. We also know that some of our struggling learners need additional time. And so by offering additional time for ELA, math, and science, those students that are needing that extra time and extra support will receive that. We're also looking to reduce the scheduling conflict that we currently have between our AIS program and our music ensembles. Both of those currently occur during ninth period, and students that are interested in being in one of the music ensembles often have a difficult time meeting their AIS needs. The important part for students is also that we get across the board consistent educational experiences for all of them. By offering those opportunities, we can ensure that all those students will have the needs of their education met. We also want to make sure that teachers get the common planning time that they need. As was earlier mentioned, having those blocks of time to sit down and coordinate not only curriculum but ideas and share best practices is invaluable to our faculty. We also want to offer flexibility with our scheduling. By blocking our schedule in the way that we have, it allows teachers more autonomy to change or adjust the needs perhaps day-to-day based on activities or classes that they're experiencing. We also want to reduce the shared staffing issues that we currently have. And in many cases, those issues create people that are off-team, and as a result, those people don't have the same connection to the middle school or the team itself, because they're covering several different areas as far as their staffing needs. By doing that, we also bring teachers into a group of people where they don't feel isolated, they feel supported, they feel encouraged, and they feel like they have some input into what's going on throughout the planning time. And one of the most important parts that we're seeing is we would be able to effectively reduce our class sizes. We know that students have more and more needs to be met, and by reducing the class sizes, we see that we will be able to build stronger relationships between students and teachers, offer support and encouragement, give them a person to sound concerns or issues off on a more personal level to allow them to experience more success.
So these have been some of our schedule considerations. Constraints we considered have been contracts, certification, state mandates, staffing needs, lunch schedules, and transition time. And supports needed moving forward would be AIS progress monitoring, co-teaching strategies, effective use of team planning time, teaching strategies for 60 and 80-minute classes, and blended learning.
Okay, so that said, what do we want to change? And there are some broad changes that we want to make across grade levels at the middle school, and then there are some specific grade level changes that we're going to address. So generally speaking, across grade levels, and Mr. Wag mentioned this, we would like to go to 6 sections for each grade level. This would mean smaller class sizes with, which would encourage stronger student-to-teacher connections. It would also ensure consistent experiences for students, having one teacher for that discipline. And it would prevent students from having that off-team experience. Right now, in some disciplines, we have students that have one class off-team, which can make it difficult when you go to team meetings and you're trying to talk about students or address concerns. And some teachers that I don't have that student, so I don't know what that situation is. And so 6 sections is what our hope is. We would restructure our team time. Currently, our planning periods are, at 2 different times during the day. We would restructure that so that they are back to back. This would allow us to spend that time together to plan those longer projects. It would allow consultant teachers that have those sections to spend the time regularly planning together. In addition to things that Mr. Wag suggested, we could have extended parent-teacher conferences. We could also have regular opportunities for professional development rather than just simply on our 5 in-service days throughout the year. This schedule would also allow for flexible grouping of students. So based on our assessment data, we could move students from one class period to another, from later in the day to earlier in the day, from an AIS section to a non-AIS section. We could also block class times. So if a math and a science teacher had back-to-back classes and a certain activity was going to take longer, we could come to an agreement on how to best use our time and adjust our time accordingly. The schedule would allow for that. We would like to see an addition of a Success Skills Expo class to be taught by our very own Mrs. Troutman, our vice principal, our school safety officer, our school counselor, to address some of those kind of soft skills, social skills that our students really need to have explicitly taught that we don't necessarily have time to explicitly teach every day in class. We are seeking to integrate writing into our core disciplines, making the effort to teach this in an application form to increase those literacy skills. We want to reduce our transition between classes to 2 minutes in between classes. We're going to use the additional time for instructional time, and we want to see a reduction in some of the behaviors that we see in the hallway. Lastly, we would like to eliminate the bells, okay? Those dreaded bells. So this would allow each grade within the middle school to function independent of each other. So as grade levels see fit, designing the instruction, designing the flow in the hallways, we could also ensure that, fifth graders are not in the hallway at the same time as eighth graders. Unique, but possible.
Okay, and I'm gonna talk specifically to some of the positives with the proposed 5-6 schedules. Having an AIS section, currently like the high school has, where we could, teach that class a little bit differently and really meet the needs of those students, possibly having either an aide in there or a teaching assistant, maybe an ELL teacher could push in during that time, but have a section specifically designed for our struggling students. Also, the makeup of the team would be 6 teachers that would be dedicated to the team. They wouldn't be shared with another team, they wouldn't be shared with another building, plus a special ed teacher that would be attached to that team. So again, a common group of adults that's sharing a common group of students, and so planning time, all of the things that we've already said, makes it so much easier to talk about students and form those relationships. Specifically, what we were thinking of is taking the 6 general ed teachers and forming pairs. So you would have 3 pairs of teachers. One teacher would be the math science in that pair, and the other teacher would be the ELA social studies person. That pair could share about 50 students. I know the incoming 5th grade is very big, so I know it sounds like 6 sections, we're really gonna reduce class size, but not with that incoming 5th grade. It's so large that really what it would look like would be a math science teacher and a social studies ELA teacher sharing about 50 students. And we all know that when you share a common group of students, your expectations and procedures and rules and the number of teachers that a 5th grader sees throughout the day would be reduced. So it would really help that 4 to 5 transition. As far as parents, they have less teachers to keep track of and less teachers to email and to be in contact with, so that's definitely a plus. I should probably stick to my cards. I don't want to be redundant. We've mentioned a lot of the same things. Having flexible grouping is huge because if students are making progress, they can go into other sections or in and out of sections. And when you have one group of students being shared by the same group of teachers, it's easy to do that. Another really cool thing would be to rotate what classes are offered at what time of day. So the academic classes could maybe be rotated so that you don't always have math first period, or you don't always have ELA first period. If your academic times are flexible within team, we could rotate when we have those classes. We all know that some of us are morning people, some of us are not. It's the same for our students. And if we could make an 8th period class turn into a 1st period class, it just makes things a lot different. Last, I just want to mention that a lot of these ideas are aligned to the district goals of literacy and forming relationships and higher expectations. And I know there's been concern about increasing math minutes in lieu of potential ELA minutes, but what I would like to say to that is that ELA skills can be incorporated across curriculum a lot easier than math skills can be incorporated across curriculum. So if we are really planning and doing those interdisciplinary units, we can cover those ELA skills across the board. So.
I'm gonna highlight some of the 7th and 8th grade schedule changes. The biggest thing is it would move to 80-minute blocks of math and ELA. And so that would be on a rotational basis. Students would have 80 minutes of math, 40 minutes of ELA, and the following day they would have 80 minutes of ELA and the 40 minutes of math. But in moving our special education students from 5th and 6th grade into 7th and 8th grade, we're looking at moving all of our 12-1-1 students into consultant classes so that our students will be able to move easier to the high school to prepare them to get that Regents diploma. So in transitioning them from 12-1-1s in 6th grade to 7th grade, we'd be able to provide 80 minutes daily instruction of math and ELA to better address those skills. So they'd be having a co-taught class for 80 minutes of math and 80 minutes of ELA with specific intervention strategies. We're looking at professional development for workshop models and station models to specifically target and support those students' needs. And with that, we'd also be able to have an AIS section, so we don't have all of our struggling students in one class. We'd be able to, at 7th and 8th grade, have the opposite subject area teacher, so we'd have 2 English teachers at 7th grade. The other teacher would be able to push in to offer 40 minutes of AIS service during a double block. So again, that allows for collaboration, it allows for teaming, it allows for teachers on the same grade level to be in each other's classroom and having specific targeted planning, as well as to be able to chart together student growth. With the flexibility that we've been talking about, students can move in and out of the sections as well. So they would be able to move into a different class if they were succeeding. So this kind of eliminates providing all of our AIS services in conjunction with ensemble. Students will still be able to have ensemble and choose and still be able to get targeted skills for what they need to succeed. So in 7th and 8th grade, we're also looking at providing advanced classes. 7th grade students would be able to have more time for science to get 7th and 8th grade science in 1 year, allowing them to take hopefully living environment in their 8th grade year with a lab. Same thing, 7th grade students would be able to have additional math time to take the coursework of 2 years in 1 year to take then further advanced high school courses in 8th grade. And I think that covered it.
So, how can you support this work? So, going through all these changes and looking at schedules, we identified what we would need in order to make this happen. We would need an additional ELA teacher at 7th grade, additional math teacher at 7th grade, and an additional science teacher that we would share between 7th and 8th grade. We would have 1 social studies overage in 8th grade, and we would like a teacher assistant who could be in that success skills class every day. You know, we would come in to instruct, but they would be in there to continue the work, because obviously we couldn't be in there every single day. So those are the things that we would need in order to make all the changes that we talked about happen. So questions?
How far along are you in the actual putting together a schedule? Saying that you have these positions, placing a working schedule together.
We have been working on the schedule since, I think, October. And we do have tentative, we actually have multiple tentative schedules. I mean, to be perfectly honest, we created some schedules, we shared it, we got some feedback, we came back, we made other schedules based on that feedback. So we have multiple possible schedules.
Within the existing framework of the
Correct.
day?
Correct.
Okay. Well, this is a very exciting and a very good plan. It's a very aggressive plan. And I think the biggest problem is, with addition to instructional staff, would be basically scheduling conflicts. I don't know, I mean, these are things you're working on, so I wouldn't know that. But yeah, it certainly has a lot of merit to continue on.
Yes.
Totally agree with Mr. Jambrone. It's really exciting. So many enhancements to think about, but the change and the amount of change, both from a cultural perspective and logistics. So, what is the thinking about what we would have to do to actually prepare staff and students culturally, but then all of these logistics and how is that planning being considered?
We are having a lot of conversations and have been throughout the process. So it's not just this team that had these discussions. We've been talking about it. We've been talking about what are our CT and our AIS classrooms gonna look like, because they can't look the same. They have to look different. And so we're having those conversations about that. So I think regardless of what happens, we know changes need to be made. And so we're moving forward with our conversations. Are we gonna need some professional development? Absolutely, and we've already talked about today, our MTSS team met all day to start our work on developing our plan that we hope to present to you by the end of the year. And, you know, we talked about best practices and differentiating instruction, and that we need to make sure people know what that means. And so using our faculty meetings for the rest of the year to start bringing in best practices. So there is a lot of work to do. Can it be done before next school year? Absolutely. We've already started the work regardless if we're going to get that or not, because it's the work we need to do anyways, if that makes sense.
Sorry, follow up. Is there any consideration, is there any potential for a phased approach? So, you know, we're looking at this huge change, which is great, and we want to get there. But, you know, if we look at, okay, what's the investment we need, you know, how much can we bite off at one time? Has there been any discussion about thinking about, you know, taking it in maybe a couple of steps?
And we've talked about, you know, if we don't get, we go back to the drawing board and we, I think we can make what we need to. We'll do the changes we can based on what we have. And we have talked about that, but we haven't planned for it because it's a lot of planning.
If I can interject, some of the changes that we're proposing are approaches that we had used in the past. And so we see the merit in that, and our educational research and the visitations that we've done have supported that. So we see that in the model that we're trying to create, that it's an opportunity that's been proven. And so by, you know, understanding how to get there, and, you know, honestly, we're kind of getting into it and trying to figure out the best way to approach it. That's kind of where we're at, and rethinking it or talking about it is going to be the best plan.
Anybody else want to jump in, your thoughts?
I just wanted to say this sounds amazing. I love that you're all working sort of collaboratively, and it sounds, you know, sounds like everyone's kind of excited about this, and I think it'll be great for our students, and I hope it'll be great for you in terms of how you feel about working with the students and teachers and getting the most out of your teaching experiences. So, yeah, this is neat.
And I think on a couple occasions, we've mentioned that this is going to be a lot of work, and we're going in to that with our eyes open. And, you know, they are ready for the work. You know, you need to know that, you know, and
I would add that in 26 years of teaching, and I've attended, you know, a lot of conferences and a lot of workshops and done a lot of visitations, and we are now getting to a point where we have access to the technology that we need to implement some of these awesome things that we go and see. And a lot of times in the past, you know, we would go and see, and we would come back and we would say, oh, well, we don't have this or that, or we don't have the tools to do it, or the time to do it. And so it's exciting to be able to, you know, I've acquired this toolbox of things from conferences that I've learned over time, and then now it's like, oh, with blended learning, and we now have, you know, the interactive board, and we're getting Chromebooks, and it's exciting to say, how can we now make this work and make this happen, because we're getting that technology piece. So I would just like to add that this isn't an overnight, you know, work in progress. It's been years of putting together what would make a really great schedule and a really great math program. And then you have all these moving parts that it's not just math, it's science and it's ELA and it's everything. So personally, it's a lot of things that have gone into this, not just, wow, this is a lot overnight.
Mr. Hawk?
A lot of the questions I had, both Dave and Mrs. Thornton asked, but to the student body, the curiosity of the students, what do you notice changing there as far as the way you taught and the way the students are coming to school prepared to learn, meaning with technology?
We need it to keep them hooked. You know, it's no longer, that they're just, you know, anxious to see me to do math anymore, you know? We have to hook them, and that's the hook, is the technology piece. And it's not everything. You know, I have my old school things too, but it's the blended learning. And I've been doing a lot with workshop model, and it's awesome. Having, you know, some direct instruction groups and having some, you know, a group on the computers, a group doing review. So it's teaching us how to meet the new needs of our students.
And I heard you say that you don't necessarily have the equipment.
We do, we are getting the equipment. I mean, you know, 10 years ago, going to a conference, a nice skate conference, and coming back and not having the computers to do it, or the Chromebooks to do it, and we're there. We're getting there now, so it's exciting.
I think too that the flexibility of the schedule would be a real asset because the interdisciplinary aspect of teaching is really critical. I think that real world application, I think has kind of fallen to the wayside in some aspects in the last few years. I think the students really enjoy that, coming to school and having to solve a problem and having taught science, teaching science. When I present them with a problem to solve, they are excited, they are motivated, they are ready to go. Having the flexibility in a schedule to say to someone, hey, I need an extra 20 minutes on this project, could we bump our time? Or could we share, hey, math and science, could we work on this together? I think that's an